So let me tell you a story. About 5 years ago in January, I had planned on going hiking one Sunday morning, and I woke up and it had snowed, not a lot. So I decided I would keep my plans and go for a hike. I had planned on hiking a section of the Mountains to Sea Trail here in North Carolina that is above Sunburst and Lake Logan near the Blue Ridge Parkway. To get there, you go up a road called NC 215, which goes from the valley floor there in Bethel all the way up to the parkway. So as you can imagine, it's a very steep and curvy road. The higher I got on the road, the worse the road conditions became. And eventually I got to a point where the entire road was white, covered in packed snow, and I decided that I was going to turn around. I didn't feel safe continuing, so I was looking for a place that was wide enough for me to turn around safely. And as I turned the next curve in the road, there was blood smeared from my side of the road all the way to the far side to the guardrail, and then all the way back, like a big V. And I believe in hindsight what happened was somebody was coming down the mountain and hit something, maybe a deer, slammed on the brakes because the road was slick. They slid maybe into the guardrail and then back across the road. Regardless of what happened, it puts you in a different state of mind. It becomes very creepy and morbid. And I decided then and there I was going to turn around. So I did probably a 30-point turn in the middle of this little 2-lane road so I could get off the mountain. And I decided that I would go somewhere a little lower and hike. So I made my way back down 215, and I saw a big pull-off on the right-hand side of the road, and I thought, well, I know there's a trail here, and I believe it's called Fairy Falls. I'm not sure. I've never been there. I'm not positive where it is, but I can see what looks like a trail, so I'm going to go for it. So I pulled in, I got my pack, crossed the road, and there was snow on the ground there too. But I don't mind hiking in the snow. I started up the trail, and it's instantly obvious that it was probably not a trail to a waterfall. It was an old logging road. It very quickly moved away from the creek, and it was basically just switchback all the way up the mountain. So there were a couple of things I noticed. One, obviously there was about 3 inches of snow on the ground. The second was that there were trees blown down everywhere. Every 200 yards maybe, I had to get off the trail completely to go around these giant blown down trees. So I got to a point on the trail, not an end, just the point where I decided that was enough. I was going to turn around and go back down because the trail wasn't very interesting. So I stopped there in the snow and I took off my backpack to get some water. And I realized that one of my trekking poles was missing. I always carry 2 trekking poles. I didn't think much of it. I thought, well, it's fallen out somewhere. I will see it on the way back down. It's bright blue. Or maybe potentially I left it in my truck. So I had a little water and I started back down the mountain. Now I could see on this very obvious trail, and it was, like I said, it was an old logging road. I could see clearly my footprints. And I got to the first big blowdown that I had gone around on the way up. It was a massive tree. And I knew for a fact that I'd gone up the hill and around it because the tree was so long that it went quite a ways down the hill, and it was pretty steep on the lower side. So I distinctly remembered going around. As I got closer to the blowdown, I saw that the prints appeared to go straight through the middle of this blown down tree. And that gave me pause. I know that I didn't walk through the middle of a blown down tree. I don't even know how that's possible. The footprints weren't that old because it had only snowed the night before. The blown down tree looked like it had been there for quite some time. So it was hard for me to reconcile these different things. There's obviously footprints in the snow. They go through a blown down tree. I don't really understand how that happens. So I did the same thing I did on the way up. I went up the hill and around the blowdown and back on the trail. I never saw anywhere that I thought there were two sets of footprints. I was just following mine as far as I could tell. But it was in the back of my mind, like something unusual is going on here. I got about a quarter of a mile from my truck, and I happened to be turning the corner on the trail, and I looked down the hill, and I just caught a glimpse of something blue, and I realized it was my trekking pole, and it was about 50 yards down the hill. And I froze, because there's no way that it rolled there. There's 3 inches of snow on the ground. There's bushes and shrubs and little trees, and there's no marks in the snow. The only way it could have gotten there would be that if someone had thrown it. And so a lot of questions go through your head. Who is up here? Was that the person that I saw their footprints? Why did they throw my trekking pole down the hill? And how have I not seen them all day? There's no leaves on the trees. Everything's white. You can see for half a mile in every direction. So how, if there is in fact another person up here, how have I not seen them or heard them all day? And my last thought was, did they throw my trekking pole down there to lure me down this bank? So, your senses are on high alert. I looked everywhere, but like I said, there's no footprints. There's no sign that there's another person. So I made my way down the hill to my pole, checking behind every tree and constantly looking over my shoulder. I grabbed my pole, made my way back up the hill, and I essentially ran the last quarter mile to my truck. And I never saw a soul. There was no car parked at the bottom of the mountain. There were no other footprints that I saw. And I have no reason to believe that anything paranormal happened. But an experience like that shakes you. Whether it was a person or a spirit, that interaction is horrifying. For me, an experience like that makes me have a lot of different thoughts. One, and probably the most frightening, is that it was in fact just another person. To know that somebody else could be up there and could mess with you in that way and never be seen is terrifying. And obviously you think of ghosts and apparitions and things like that because that's what I do. There's also a tradition all around the world of forest spirits and the fae folk and fairies and things, and the idea that there is some sort of personification of the forest and that it doesn't want you to be there is pretty interesting to think about.